This is a particle, and this particular particle is sugar, the granular kind. And granulated sugar is a little small, so if we want to see it up close, we can use a 2x magnification macro lens, which is pretty good. But how do we compare it to this particle? Powdered sugar. Now that is a very small particle. We will need a little bit more magnification than that. All right, let's go from 2x magnification to 10x magnification. You're gonna need a lot of light for this. And that's tiny. More magnification. 20x magnification. Okay, that's better. 50. And that's not happening. I have no idea if this is gonna work. Kind of works like a fractal. It's kind of crazy. That's pretty good. Now it's bright. So we've talked a lot about what woven wire mesh is and the specs that make up the openings and the wires, but we haven't really talked about why is woven wire mesh. I mean, the whole point of there being an opening is for something to pass through said opening, right? So is there a spec that talks specifically about the opening's relation to the particle that goes through it? No, yes. It's Masterclass we're talking about. It's the Woven Wire Mesh Masterclass. This crazy important spec is called geometric pore size, and it's the whole reason that woven wire mesh does what it does. And oddly enough, this measurement is a scientific way to fit a circular peg through a square hole. Don't think about that sentence too much, it's exactly how it goes. It's time for the definition. Geometric pore size references the absolute largest spherical particle that can fit through an opening at any angle. Let me repeat that. Geometric pore size references the absolute largest spherical particle that can fit through an opening at any angle. So I know that was only one sentence, but it's going to take a plethora of sentences to actually explain all that, so we'll break it up in parts. So first off, geometric pore size references the absolute largest spherical particle. It's a set, unwavering size with basically no room for a tolerance. That sphere will perfectly fit through that opening. Not kind of fit, perfectly fit. Now I want to clarify something. This is different than a micron rating, which you might have heard of before. They're basically the same thing, except micron ratings don't deal in absolutes. You see, micron rating will only be within a certain range. So if your opening has a micron rating of 150 and your particle is exactly 150 microns in diameter, there's a possibility of it not fitting because that 150 micron rating of the opening could be smaller, like 148 or something like that, because it has a particle range. I look terrifying. Why is that so scary looking? So if they both have a geometric pore size of 0.5 inches, then it's going to fit, just fit. Satisfying. So why is it a sphere? Why not an asymmetrical shape like a rock or heck, even a cube? Well, let's try that. I've got a cube here that is the exact same size as this opening. 10 millimeter width and a 10 millimeter aperture width. So if I were to fit a cubed peg through a square hole, ta-da, it just goes through. But if I were to take a cube, rotate it so that it now resembles a diamond shape from the front, then try and screen it, it doesn't go through. That's because the distance from one point to the other point is actually longer than one side to the other side. So that means that the aperture width, or in this case the geometric pore size, is actually too small for this cube, even though it can fit from a different angle. So if I were to take this 10 millimeter cube and draw a perfect circle from around its furthest points, it makes a circle, which guarantees that the whole shape is one uniform size so that we don't have the same problem of multiple measurements like a cube. So if I were to then take the mesh, which has a 10 millimeter aperture width, and draw a circle based on its sides, not by its points, you would get a circle that's a little bit smaller. In fact, it's 2.86 millimeters smaller than the other circle. See, it fits now, but now it doesn't fit. Fits, doesn't fit, fits. You get the point. Using the points of a 10 millimeter cube, it's 17 millimeters. But using the sides of the cube, or in this case, the sides of the mesh, it's a 14.14 millimeter diameter, which is the actual geometric pore size of a piece of mesh that has a 10 millimeter aperture width. 14.14 millimeters. The more you know. Now, Here's a funny thing, big twist. It'll be confusing for a second, but I promise it'll make sense in a moment. We don't use geometric pore size for square mesh. We only use it for filter cloth. So everything I've been saying up to this point has been a complete lie. No, it's not a lie. You can use geometric pore size for square mesh. It's just, there's no point because we have aperture size. Filter cloth is a zero aperture mesh. Geometric pore size is the only way that you can actually measure the openings of filter cloth. There's just no other way because it's a zero aperture mesh. So we have to use it for that, but we don't have to use it for square mesh. And here's why. So the reason why we use aperture size for square mesh is because we're looking at it directly from the front. And the particles going through it are going directly through it. Straight on, not from an angle, from the front. So if we were to say angle the mesh like a bit like that, and then try to screen the particles through the mesh at this angle this is very scientific. If we were to take the mesh, drop it through, boom, doesn't go through. Why does that happen, you may ask? The aperture size is smaller relative to the particle coming to it from that angle. Science. But if it's head on, it just goes through. What in the science is going on? If the aperture width head on is actually like an inch, and then you angle it like this, it's kind of more like 0.3 inches if you're coming at it from this angle. Man, this is a garbled mess of stuff. If the particles were constantly coming at it from this angle, there could be an argument to use geometric pore size. But since we're really only screening particles through square mesh from the front like this, only aperture size is needed. Scene transition. So for filter cloth, because of how it's woven, no particle will ever go through it head on. It's impossible. Every opening has to be approached at some sort of angle. Now, depending on the angle depends on how big that opening looks to that particle. So, what we mean when we say geometric pore size is this. At the perfect angle, where the opening looks largest, the internal diameter of that opening is going to tell you what the biggest particle is that can pass through that opening. Smaller particles can pass through that opening too, don't get me wrong, even at different angles, depending on how small they are. But no particle bigger than the geometric pore size of that opening will ever fit through that opening. So whether it's a perfect sphere, cube, oval, asymmetrical shape, it doesn't matter. If it matches or is under the geometric pore size of that opening, it will pass through. I need like a mic to drop. And that, my friends, is geometric pore size, the longest definition ever, I know. And since filter cloth only really applies to geometric pore size, we don't really need to go into applications. Filter cloth filters things, geometric pore size can be large or small, you get the picture. But how do I calculate geometric pore size? Now that is a question. Okay. Turns out it's a bad question. Okay, so this is kind of the first time where we can't really calculate that number without an incredibly precise simulation software, which happens to be proprietary. Ultra precision filter cloth isn't just something that any woven wire mesh manufacturer can make. And the companies that do have those capabilities aren't about to give up their secrets. So if you're needing to know your geometric pore size, that is something between you and your woven wire mesh manufacturer. Unless, of course, you are the woven wire mesh manufacturer. And if so, then congratulations. That's a great geometric pore size calculation. Help, I've been trapped in a prison of my own making of woven wire mesh. I'm just kidding. Guys, we did it. We've gotten to the point where all fundamental aspects of woven wire mesh have been explained. No, there's something else. There's something else that's really important about woven wire mesh. Woven wire mesh. Woven. Oh, we should probably talk about the weaves that are in woven wire mesh. Yeah. So in the next episode, we will be extensively covering all the different types of possible weaves imaginable. Well, I mean, within reason, of course. So the next episode is about weave types, so stick around for episode 5. See you then.